Hi, my name is Roger Crooks. I'm with Northwest Woodturners, and today we're going to talk about platters. Specifically, we're going to do a colored rim platter. So platters are fun to do. There's all different kind of patterns that you can use. This one is just a very nice piece of figured wood, and it's a combination between a platter and a slate bowl. Nice thing about platters, you don't need huge chunks of wood. Anything inch and a half and even down to an inch works fine for platters. This is one with another decorative rim with beads on the back, and this one is about 1.25 inches thick. You can go crazy with it, embellishment with this one is about 2 inches because it's got a deep bowl, but that's up to you. The decorative piece of the rim is what's important in this one. You can go crazy with a basket illusion. This one is really shallow. It's about just over 1/2 inch. And another idea is if you have a burl cap, what do you do with a burl cap that's not very big? Well, here's one idea. You can make a sort of a combination bowl platter, and you have the back to show if you want, or you can make a simple stand. In this case, we just put a little dowel there, made a little stand, and you can make a stand for it. But today we're going to focus on the colored rim, and again, taking a look at the design aspects of the platter. This one is again very shallow. This one is actually even more shallow. A couple design decisions you have to make is, here we have the rim, and for almost all these I use make that flat and then color it black for excuse me. And then how wide is the rim you're going to have? 1/3, 2/3 is a good, but sometimes the best decision to make is take a look at the figure that you have to work with and incorporate as much of the figure that you can. The next thing is to decide what's the demarcation between the colored part and the bowl part. And this one is fairly flat, whereas this one has a curved radius on the rim, a bead right here, and then the flat bowl part. And again, you can see how shallow that is. So for platters, you can go to most any hardware store, lumber store, and get flat work, gorgeous figured woods that anywhere between 3/4 of an inch and 1.5 inches, probably the most. 2 inches gives you a little bit more room to work with, but you'll find at the end 1.5 inches is probably what your final product's going to be between 1 inch and 1.5 inches. One of the books I recommend is this one from Mark Baker. It's called Wood Turning Projects, a workshop guide to shapes. It's not really a book about turning. It's a book about how to different options for what you want to make. It's got a section on boxes, bowls, platters, hollow forms, and natural edge work. So once you decide that what you want to make, we'll go to the platter section, and what we're going to be doing is making it's called a broad rim platter. And there's a lot of different designs that you can do with that. The nice thing about here is that it gives you a diagram of the form, and what we're concerned about here initially is just how we're going to do the rim of the bowl. And as I said, for what we're doing, this is going to be flat and then curved around. So what we want to end up with is a rim here, rim here, and then the back. If it's thick enough, you can put a little orgy design in it. If it's not, if you don't have any room, then you're pretty much going with a pretty flat back. To save wood, I go with a recess rather than a tenon on these. And in the demo that we're going to do here, we're actually going to use a glue block because the piece that we have is very thin. So for a project like this, the first thing you want to do is pick a really nice piece of figured wood. The dyeing and the coloring looks fine on a plain piece of wood, but really to make it spectacular, you want figure, because you'll see later that figure will just really pop when we put several different colors of dye on there. So this piece is rather thin. It's about 15/16 of an inch, and because it is so thin, we're not going to do a tenon, we're going to do a glue block. And this is one that's been put on with hot glue and put a little dovetail on there. And so now we have something we can mount. Now we need to design what we want. So the outer perimeter is in pencil here, which you may or may not be able to see, but it ends up being a 9-inch platter. And then we're going to figure out the rim, how big of a rim we want. In this case, I've chosen about 1.5 inch rim. So we draw that rim out, and then take a look at the piece and see what challenges we have, which is a knot here that we're going to need to fill. But over here you can see there's going to be some gorgeous figure, both in the colored part of the rim as well as the bowl part of the platter. We looked at the other side. I looked at the other side before, and it also looks good, but because mostly of the figure that we have up here, I chose this to be the top. So the first thing we want to do is make it round and flatten the surface to see how thick the platter we can really do. Okay, we're looking good there. Now we want to see about flattening. So you can see here we are just about flat along this ridge. So now we can measure the true working depth, which is 3/4 of an inch. So our platter is going to be 3/4 of an inch. Give us some depth in the bowl section, but I think that's going to be good. So let's flatten that out. So you can flatten it two ways. You can go push cut like that, or draw a cut to get it close, but push cut will give you a smoother surface. So at this point we want to work on any defects. So we want to fill this little knot hole. Maybe put a little CA glue in these two little knots, really tiny. The bird's eye is going to look beautiful. And so really this is the only serious thing that we need to fix, and that won't be a problem. So we're going to use a micromotor to clean it out. I've got two different type of bits here. I've got this tapered one that's fine, and I've got this really tiny drill bit. And I think for this knot we're going to use this one. So we can take a little dental pick and just see how deep that goes. And that goes pretty deep. Probably about 3/8 of an inch. So there's quite a bit to fill there. So the question now is, do we want to fill it clear with clear CA glue, or do we want to put some filling in there? And I think for this, we haven't decided on the color yet, but let's go with something simple like coffee grinds. So before I use CA glue on a piece, I always like to seal the wood, and this is just a solution of shellac and denatured alcohol in a 1:5 ratio, and that just seals the wood so that if you get glue outside where you want it, it doesn't stain the wood. So the first thing we're going to do is just pour some coffee grinds in there. And then we're going to use thin CA glue. And just start pouring it in there. CA hardener. So I think that will do for that. So now I'm just going to scrape away the high point of the coffee grinds. And that came out pretty good. Okay, I fixed a couple spots. In this case, I just added some just CA glue around the edges there, because that will sand down flat. These are good. I put another dab on that right there. And so notice I'm taking this on and off. And as you all know, it's hard to put something back on once you've taken it off, unless you've marked it. So what I've done is I've picked a spot on all my jaws. I put a little black line here. This is actually on number 4, and penciled in the gap that it leaves so that when I put it back on, I know it's always going to go back in the same place. And it's just even if you don't think you're going to be taking it on and off the chuck, it's just a good habit to get into, so that if you ever do have to remount something, you have a pretty good chance of it staying in round as it was when you took it off. So we're going to do the same thing again, just flatten out. So that looks great. Okay, so now we want to we want to sand this part here, because that's the part that we're going to be dyeing. And I'm going to get rid of a little bit more of the center here. So we're going to sand this area to get ready to dye. And then what we need to do is start thinking about the design of the platter. How, whether we're going to put a bead here between the rim and the bowl, or what we're going to do for that demarcation. And then whether we want a rounded edge here, and just sort of design the bowl here. But the first thing we want to do is just get this surface nice and clean, ready for whatever we decide to do. So I use one of these centrifugal sanders, a 2-inch disc. Running pretty fast. Good. So I'm not going to record going through all the grits, because I'm going to turn the vacuum on for the dust, and we'll come back when I'm done. So I've sanded up through 600 grit, and you can see a lot of beautiful figure there, and our little patch work with coffee grounds is there. So I think this will work out great. There's about a 1/4-inch rim, about right there. So from here, this is going to be flat, and then we're going to just make it a little bit round. Not finish the back, but just finish the edge. So we have our initial rim design here. We got the flat spot and curved away. So we're going to, as I say, that flat spot is going to be dyed black, and the below that will just be natural wood. So we don't want to cut the whole rim right now, because once we dye the rim, you'll get some bleed out into the curved part. So we want to do we'll dye it, and then we'll cut the curve for a nice sharp line. So we're ready to get serious on this. The example here, this is about a 10-inch bowl. The rim is about 1 3/4 inches, and then 1/4, 3/8 for the bead. And it's got a indentation here around where the bead is. And this part is flat. On this one, the rim is slightly curved. Again, a flat rim goes into where the bead is, and on this one, the rim is just slightly smaller, a little over 1.5 inches. So I think for the demo, we'll just do something simple. We'll keep this flat, and we'll put a bead around there, color it black, dye it black, and then we'll cut out the center part. And then, of course, we'll have to do the back, and with a glue block, it's a little different than using a chuck. But we'll address that when we get there. So now we're ready to start with the dye. So what do you need? Pick your colors. We're going to go primarily with black, red, and yellow. And then we'll talk a little bit about how you can do some spot colors in there and blend them together. I'm using just standard paper towel, cut them into small slices, The Abernet discs work great because as they get gunked up, you can blow out with an air compressor and get some grip back on it. And then a glove. So I'm using the Chestnut brand. These are pre-mixed alcohol-based dyes. You get them from Craft Supply. Their own brand also works fine. They're also alcohol-based. In general, I like to go with alcohol-based rather than water-based, so you don't have to deal with raising the grain every time you put them on. The first step is the black, and the effect that we're going to get is with the burls and the figure. The dye is going to soak into wherever it sees end grain much more than it will on the side grain. So by doing that, it's going to really pop the figure in the wood. So we're going to do the whole thing black, and then we're going to sand it all off, and you'll see that the end, any place where there's figure and end grain, it's going to soak in. So we shake it up. I've also got a protective cloth over my over my lathe. So now we're going to slow it down, and then just get a good coat of black. And then also do the side, the rim. And being alcohol based, it dries quickly. If I were Jimmy Clues, I'd take a lighter and light it. But it's my shop, and I don't think I'm going to have fire in my shop. Okay, so it's dried, and now we're going to sand it off. So I started with 180 since we had finished the surface at 600. I didn't want to go too low in grit, so the 180 is, I think, taking it off in a reasonable amount of time. So we'll just keep at 180, and then we'll once we get most of the black off, we'll shoot up through 600 again. You notice I'm not sanding the rim because I want to keep the rim totally black. And as you can see, it's soaked into some of the figure. Let's go to red. So when I'm putting the dye on, I'm running around slow, pretty slow, maybe 300 or so. And then we'll let that dry. So we can see a little bit of color. So now we got some the second color on. Looks a little splotchy. We may have to put some more on after we sand this off, but we'll see what happens. So we sand most of the red off. I think I'm going to try a little darker red. This is called oxblood. It's a much darker red. And sometimes if you're getting streaks from the rotation, you can get rid of those by just putting this on by hand and get a better saturation. So you can see on this how quickly it gummed up the sanding disc, but can blow it out and get some more life out of it. Okay. So we're going to go to a third color, and I'll take a little bit more off here in just a minute. And then don't be afraid to hand sand some spots. If you want to see if you can get a little more of that off, you can do that. But let's go to our third color. So I've got yellow here. And they're starting to pop some of it. And again, you can go in by hand. Nice thing about this process, if you don't like what's coming out, you can sand it off and try again. Just remember that the the dyes soak into the wood pretty well. So if you're going to sand it off, you're going to be sanding totally sand it off. You'll be sanding for a while. If you just want to go back one color, as we did, you can see it doesn't take off much. So let's see if we're finished. The other technique is to splotch some colors in, and so this technique is you have you don't have it spinning. You take in this case we're going to put dabs of blue in here, and if there's a secret formula how to do this, I sure haven't found out, but we'll see how that works out. And then you blend it with denatured alcohol. I'm going to spritz some denatured alcohol on my pad and just sort of blend it a bit. As I say, you never really know how it's going to turn out. So we don't want any hard lines on the splotchy color. We just really want to try and blend it in. Well, we'll see how that turns out. It actually looks pretty, doesn't look really great here, but once we get the varnish on and the finish on, then it's going to look pretty nice. So that's the coloring part. So now we're going to put the bead on, and since we colored way over that what we really needed for the rim, now we can take a look and see where we might want it. So there's a nice piece of figure there. Let's try and keep that. And I'm thinking about right there is where I want my bead. So I'm going to take a D-way beading tool. Go it down to about 500-600 or so. So notice I was rocking the tool when I was doing that. So now we have the bead. And I think I like putting I don't like a hard edge there, so we're going to soften that edge with spindle gouge. And then also for the other side of the bead is going to be the start of the bowl. So we can start that with the spindle gouge here. So right there, we just want to define the bead, and we'll worry about the inside later. So the next step is to make this black here between the colored rim and the uncolored bowl part. So we're going to blacken the bead again with a black dye. This part's a little bit tricky because we want to get black on the bead and on that groove there, and try not to get on the colored part. But if you do, it's not a big deal. So a little bit more. And if you notice, I am going in reverse here. I think we're good. So you know what, I think I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to this. Again, as I say, the nice thing is you can keep mucking around with it until you get it the way you want it. Yellow does make things pop a bit. And you'll see some of the blue now has a tinge of yellow on it, and I think it's going to make it look really nice. Okay, so you can see the importance of figures. So this is pretty plain Jane side grain, and there's hardly anything exciting going on there. But as you get into the bird's eye and some figure, there it looks really nice. So the next step is to hollow out the center. About 5/8 deep, so we can't go, we're not going to have a bowl for sure, but we will have a little bowl. So let's start. Flatten this first. So we want to make work on this bead here, and get that finished, and then we'll clean out the center. So you see we've got a nice crisp black line there, which is what we want. And now we'll just hollow it out. So this is just a quick way of getting rid of a lot of wood. A little bit more. Now we're going to do a push cut for, actually we're going to, I'm going to go to the grinder, put a new edge on it, and then make my last pass. Okay, I've got a fresh edge. Little bit of tear out right where. So what was happening was the center actually was deeper than the side. So as I came across here, I ran out of wood and stopped cutting. So I'm going to have to take more, make this a little bit deeper, so I can have one clean cut all the way across. Okay. Okay, so now we're just going to sand the center, and I'm just going to go run through the grits again. So I'm not going to record all the going through the grits, but I'm going to take this up to 600 grit. So we're done with the sanding, and I noticed that I must have hit this part with the sandpaper a little bit. A nice option are these little pen markers. They're actually, you fill them with dye. They're available through craft supply. It's called Molotow, something like that. So I filled it with black dye, and it's just like a magic marker. And I'm just going to blacken this section here. Okay, so I've cleaned up the black there, so there's no raw wood showing on this part. And now we're just going to put some Pens Plus on the center. And that's made it pop a bit. So the next step is the varnish. So now we're going to put the varnish on. I'm using Def clear wood finish gloss. It's available at Home Depot and other big box stores. Shake it up good, and then they recommend that it's your temperature should be in the 50s or so. It's a little bit chilly here, but we'll give it a shot. So we're back the next day, and the magic of video lets me sort of back up a bit. The spray can of the varnish, it just was not working for me, so I gave up on the rattle can. And then I remembered that we had a demo a couple years ago about how to put on a varnish fast. And this is what he used: Hydrocoat, pre-catalyzed lacquer clear gloss, diluted 50-50 with denatured alcohol, and that worked really good. So I'll just put another coat of lacquer on here. So just to show you putting this on, I'm using a foam brush, throwaway brush, and this is diluted 50-50 with denatured alcohol. Put it down pretty slow, and actually I'm just going to put it on by hand. And this dries really fast, so I think between coats we can put another coat on in a couple minutes, which for a demo should work well. And so I'll put some on the rim here. Check for any splotches or runs, and then run it pretty slow. This helps it dry, but if you run it too fast and you have too much lacquer on there, then you get runs, and that doesn't look very good. So let's see, we'll run it for let's say 2 minutes and see how it goes. And then what I'll do is probably turn the camera off, put another 3 or 4 coats on until I'm happy with the finish, and then we'll talk about how we flip it around, take the glue block off, and mount it to do the back. So we've got about I don't know, 8-10 coats of the lacquer on there, and it's looking pretty good. You can see the shine in the lights, and you know, that little tint of blue shows up there, very subtle, and a lot of figure down there. So we're going to put a coat of wax and call the top finish. So I'm going to use this micro crystal paste wax from someone we all know, Doctor's Wood Shop. A lot of people will use 4/0 steel wool. I don't particularly like steel wool, so I'm using just a 3M really fine pad. And just put it on there. Speed it up so the gets a little bit warm, helps the wax melt in. And looks pretty good. So the next step is the back, and you can see where the dyes have bled through to the back. That's why anything we were going to do dye, we're going to cut fresh wood, so we have a fine line between the back and the unfinished, undyed back of the platter. So now our goal is to get this off. So how do you get a glue block off? First of all, notice that the glue is around the perimeter. You don't glue this like you would normally glue two boards together. First of all, it would be hard to make it perfectly flat. And second is, hot glue is not like yellow glue where it just squeezes out and flattens out. So we're going to go to a heat gun. It's called a Drill Master. I'm not sure why it's called a Drill Master, but maybe something was lost in translation because I'm sure it was made in China. So we're going to heat this up a bit. So we heat the sides so it gets somewhat melty, and then I was able to get a screwdriver under there, and we just lift the whole thing off. Easier said than done. We're going to get rid of the hot glue, and it should just right off. Notice I've got the tailstock out. I've got a great vacuum seal on here. It's at the maximum, but still it's a good idea if you can have the tailstock out. Go ahead and do it. So we're going to just flatten the back with a pull cut. Get rid of that. So now we have basically to figure out what do we want for a design. As you saw in the others, I had a recessed tenon there. So maybe on this one we could put a really tiny little rim for it to set on. We could leave it flat, but I think we're going to make this a curve here. Remember, there's not a lot of wood on the other side here, so maybe we can do a slight orgy. We'll see. So the first thing I'm going to do is finish the rim. And the important thing is to have a good clean line between the black and the wood here. Now that's a really sharp fine line. So let's figure out where we want to put a little foot. Something like here. So we want a maybe just a 1/16 inch rim would be probably fine. So I'm going to cut the wood from here to here. Give us room for that foot. Okay. So we don't want that to look like a tenon. So we're going to take the tailstock away. Use my parting tool here to define the foot. With a smaller gouge I can get in there now. So a nice thing about being able to turn in reverse is this was a hard cut to make since you don't have room. But in reverse, I can start from the outside and come in, which is what we're going to do. So there's our foot. There's the figure. So we still have a couple tear outs around some of this gnarly stuff. And so I'm going to try to just do a shear scrape, see if I can clean that up before sanding. So to do that, you want to hold it at about a 45-degree angle. And you're just taking a light cut. It actually did a pretty good job. So we have a little tear out there. Let's see if I can do that. There. Remember, we're going to go in reverse. That helped quite a bit. It's not gone, but helped quite a bit. Before we go to sanding, just one last check. Make sure your foot is deep enough. So putting a ruler across here to make sure that the side's clear. So again, we're going to use our centrifugal sander. Because of some of the gnarly spots, I'm going to start at 80 grit. That'd be good. So I've sanded through the grits. Now we're going to put a little, just a little design here. All my pieces I do 3 rings. And then outer ring. I put my name and the type of wood used here. So you want to do this before you put a finish on. So we sanded it, we made the foot, we put a little design back here. I signed it with a black gel pen, which is really easy. You just press hard enough to break the wood fibers, let the ink soak in, and it dries immediately. And you can put a finish on right after that. It's really easy to do, and obviously we recommend everyone sign their work. So the next step is to finish it with a coat of Pens Plus. Okay, so we're going to put some Pens Plus on it. A lot of nice figure on the back. The Pens Plus really makes it pop. And I don't really see a need to varnish the back. So we're just going to stick with that and call it a day. So that's a finished piece. As I said before, every piece comes out different. Depending on the dyes that you use, the colors you use, how you put it on. The nice thing is you can put on and take off as many times as you want until you get it the way you like it. Just be warned that when you're finished dyeing, it actually looks pretty crummy. And it's not until you put a finish on there that the colors really pop. So don't get too discouraged if after you're done dyeing, it doesn't look very good. 9 out of 10 times it's going to come out looking beautiful. The finish we put on was a lacquer. To be honest, during the demo, that was had a lot of trouble with the initial lacquer I used. The second type of lacquer went on really well, but I still had remnants of the first coat of lacquer. So it's not perfect, but you get the idea of how to go about doing this. So we used a glue block because the wood was so thin. I would suggest for your first one, get a little thicker piece of wood, 1.5 inch, 1.25 inches, put a recessed tenon on it, and then go from there. Especially and certainly if you don't have a vacuum chuck, that's got to be the best way of going. The vacuum chuck makes life a whole lot easier. So when you get to a point where you're flipping things around a lot, consider getting a vacuum pump. It does save a lot of time and hassle. But glue blocks, they work just fine. So thanks for watching.